Robert Jenrick, probably a long-time Conservative MP that's been around, well, fairly quite a while, to be honest, although not, of course, without his own controversies. Number one being the time when he was the housing minister, and, well, he let a series of, shall we say, developments through, and he might have, well, not been too honest about, shall we say, why he let those particular developments through in the first place. So he's hardly, shall we say, the most squeaky clean person. But when it came to Boris Johnson, and particularly in the days, shall we say, of Boris Johnson, it was seen as him and Sunak being very, very close Johnson allies. And during that time, both Sunak and Jenrick seemed to develop somewhat of a close working relationship, that they were seen as, you know, they could work together, they could get on together. And eventually, well, when it came time for, well, Boris to go, obviously Sunak and, well, more, so we say, Sajid Javid came up and said, you know, time for you to go, my friend. Robert Jenrick also quickly jumped ship as well, primarily because he knew supposedly that Rishi Sunak was going to go, and Jenrick would like a place. He wouldn't like a ministerial place. He'd like to be maybe a minister in some way, shape, or form. So he was the Minister for Immigration, something which, you know, Priti Patel was going to lead on, and she would really be the true solver of all this. However, things have changed. Things have developed since then, and it looks like that Robert Jenrick has performed the ultimate act of betrayal on Rishi Sunak, which could be, maybe in a couple of weeks' time, maybe we'll be talking about how this was the beginning of the end for Rishi Sunak, especially as the Rwanda vote comes up for vote on Tuesday. So, before we go getting more into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And, of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and an annotation link called Buy Me Coffee Week. Well, buy me coffee. And, of course, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. There is, of course, the Pony Club as well down below. And, of course, the YouTube thank you button as well. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, etc., and all the help and support you guys show the channel. Like I say, please click on the like, click on the share button. That helps. And, of course, don't forget to leave a comment down below as well. So, why did Jenrick quit? Why, if you are almost described, I would say, as the Brutus to Julius Caesar, to Rishi, well, as Rishi Sunak's, you know, the Julius Caesar, why on earth would finally Jenrick decide, I cannot keep going along with this? I cannot keep my mind with this guy. I think going along with him will only tank further my own political career in the future. And if you've ever seen Julius Caesar, it's the exact same thing. Brutus was the original, you know, Caesar big boy. He was the guy who supported Caesar. He was his big hype man in many ways, supporting him through all the highs and lows until, of course, the rest of the Senate managed to turn him against Julius Caesar. And eventually, well, he was one, shall we say, of the 13 of the, shall we say, of the Ides of March. But what's happened now? What has caused, shall we say, this case? Why did Jenrick really flip on Rishi Sunak? Well, there are two things we've got to look at. First of all, his resignation letter. His resignation letter ultimately really points to the idea that I have resigned because I think your new Rwanda plan does not go hard enough against immigration. And the quote that is being used often is that this is a more case of hope rather than experience. And a lot of people are saying, yeah, the Rwanda plan, even if you do go this hard right version, which Jenrick would love to, I'm sure, impose, the Rwanda plan doesn't work. We've talked about the logistics of it just on a live stream. The last Good Morning Walk with Robert Jenrick's Red Hot Fury. We went through, of course, his article that he wrote on and the Tory graph about how, look, if you don't solve these problems of immigration, then the public is going to turn rapidly against you. And this gets me wondering, because we've talked before about the Tories' plan to run an immigration-focused general election, but we never said that Rishi Sunak might be the man running this general election. Because if the wind the vote fails and there's another leadership election and you get someone like Patel or Braverman, God forbid, in place, and they're the leader and they're the prime minister, well, then that becomes their plan. We want to run this incredibly hard right and fulfill this immigration desire because, you know, we can say it's the will of the people. We can do what we want, right? Well, no, because there are laws and of course there's international law. And as we pointed out again on the recent live stream, Suella Braverman went to the UN and then asked the UN to do her job. And she was treated like she should have been treated like an absolute fool and was laughed out of the UN. And of course, Jenrick, even in his his article he went through, goes through all these things of, oh, what about housing? What about social cohesion? What about all these other multiple things? Public services, the NHS, all of these are crumbling under the weight of migration. None of these things are crumbling under the weight of migration. Migration is nothing in the grand scheme of things. A couple of extra 100,000 people migrating to the UK is nothing because far more people a year are born into the UK. And as I've said before, if you think that people coming to the UK is a problem, how about all these new infants that get born that are then dependent on taxpayer money for 18 years? Why aren't the Tories suddenly going after them? Of course, it'd make them look like absolute lunatics, and this is the exact same thing. Jenrick complains about the lack of housing and the lack of services that people want. You've had 13 years in power. You've had austerity that has stripped these services to the bone, and you've told councils who have borne the brunt of austerity, who are responsible for running these services, to do more with less. And not just less, an ever decreasing amount of less. And as we've always said, immigration is not the problem. Even Jenrick in his article points to all these problems and says that immigration is the problem. No, none of those are the problem. The problem is his own government has refused to fund these public services, to build new houses, and to build the right kind of houses, to build social housing. At this point, what Robert Jenrick has essentially done is the ultimate betrayal. He has seen that tying his ship, or at least tying himself to Rishi Sunak, is just a sunk prospect at this point. And I entirely think he expects the government to lose on Tuesday, thus ushering in a potential new leadership contest or maybe even a general election. And I think he feels that if he tied himself to Rishi Sunak, then maybe he can win. Maybe he can win at a general election because he can go and talk about immigration to his local constituents and say, well, I left Rishi Sunak, so don't punish me. You can still vote for me, guys, and maybe try and survive in his seat. Maybe he feels that this new pitch that he has done would be favorable to whoever, shall we say, the next Tory leader is. But whatever happens, the friendship and this admirable working relationship that once existed between him and Rishi Sunak certainly no longer exists. And et tu, Jenrick, I suspect that Rishi Sunak is probably echoing through the halls of number 10 when he got that resignation letter. But I fully expect, to be honest, this bill will either pass. Well, I think it will just pass. I think it will pass by a very narrow margin, or it won't pass at all. And then, as we've said, if it doesn't pass, all bets are off. All bets are off. And as we said before, it could be all over for Rishi Sunak. So, of course, until then, as always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page, the One Off the Nation link, who can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, the Pony Club as well, all down below. Leave a comment, click the like button, click the share button, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.